If you're going to make a film 2.5 hours, you have to be a good storyteller and you have to be good at the technical aspects of filmmaking as well. And unfortunately, Curves Under the Mistletoe fails on both counts. This is an absolutely terrible, borderline unwatchable film. And I will explain why. I won't give any spoilers just in case you decide to watch it. But I sat through it because I knew I was going to do this discussion and I want to give it the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it got better as it went along. Unfortunately, it didn't. I will mention specific problems, but again, without giving spoilers. This was released in 2023. It's directed by Lakisha Avery Stewart, written by Kendra Rainey-King, and it stars Kendra Rainey-King as Delight. And Delight is our protagonist, and at the beginning of the film, and quite a long way into the film, we follow her journey when she is in foster care, and then eventually she goes off into the big world and tries to make it as an adult, and there's a romantic aspect to it, and honestly the narrative is so weak. To have a script that runs 2.5 hours of this nature, certain action films might warrant it because you have a lot of scenes without dialogue, and there are a lot of scenes where for large stretches of time you're just watching the action. Obviously with this kind of film that's not the case, and what that suggests to me is that somebody is so in love with their own idea, which is fair enough, you're supposed to be, that they were unwilling to cut anything from the script. And I don't know if that's true, but that's exactly what it feels like. This was a first draft. When you're writing anything, as a writer, and I'm speaking as a writer, and I'm sure other writers will agree, you have to be willing to get rid of things for the sake of the story. That's normal, that's natural, that's expected. And that clearly hasn't happened here. I hope it hasn't happened here, otherwise the length would have been even worse. So it's not well written, it's not a good story, the pacing is diabolical. We have about maybe an hour of, I was going to say watchable content, but that's not right because it isn't watchable. And again, I'll give examples in a moment. But I'd say an hour of story, even though it's not very good. I'd say there's about an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes of decent-ish story, as in key plot points, some character development, fair enough. Everything else we can throw in the bin. It adds nothing. It is utterly terrible. It is not well written. It needed a significant amount of work before it got to the shooting script stage. This is very poorly handled. Other reasons why it doesn't work. Some of the performances are a little wooden, but nothing too bad. If that was the only problem, I can completely overlook it. But it's also horrible to listen to. For several reasons. Well, they're all related to the audio, but the audio is either far too quiet. There's one scene in particular, quite early on, where younger Delight is talking with, I think, her guidance counsellor, and it's like somebody turned the volume down on the guidance counsellor's mic. I apologise if you can hear my cat meowing. She's clearly not turned down. Very, very vocal. And Delight was talking at a normal volume, and then it's like her guidance counsellor was whispering, but she wasn't. She was just talking normally. It's like somebody had put their hand over the microphone. And genuinely wouldn't surprise me if that's what happened and they just didn't do any pickups after the fact. And there are a couple of scenes where it's very staticky, where there's definitely some interference with the audio. Now, let's say benefit of the doubt, maybe the version I watched has a slightly different sound file upload. I watched it on Amazon, so maybe if you watch it somewhere else, the sound might be better, but on Amazon in the UK, on Prime, not every scene, but many scenes have terrible audio. Put it this way, I had it on full volume on Prime and full volume on the laptop. Usually I have it at around 50-60% for the average film, and I still struggled to hear a lot of what was being said. And that's when there was no interference. When we had static, it was even worse. So not a good story, absolutely terrible story. And I feel bad for saying that because as a writer, I know what it's like to care about one's work. But also as a writer, I know that sometimes you have to let go and not just keep everything in you right because you like it, because it doesn't work for the story. There's a difference between, I guess, being an artist and being a professional. And in general, if you're wanting to make money from your work, you kind of have to find that balance. Stay true to yourself, but know how to craft something that's actually good. And unfortunately, that's not the case here. Performances occasionally wooden, but generally not too bad. The sound is utterly horrendous a lot of the time, but not all of the time. The camera work, fine, I have no problems with that. The lighting, generally okay, but in general, it's one of the most amateur unwatchable things I've ever seen. Curves Under the Mistletoe, as an idea, as a concept, absolutely could have worked. If the right people were handling this, or if they'd put a lot more work into it, maybe it could have been okay. But at this point, Curves Under the Mistletoe is a really uncomfortable experience, and I definitely do not recommend it.